As you mentioned, hello everybody, I'm Laura, I'm a web developer at Shopify, and today I want to talk about super fun, attractive, and usually very surprising for majority of developers topic, view sounds. So meaning how can we integrate sounds in the web, and today we're going to use Vue for that, and as well, how can we use machine learning models for that. And usually when we are thinking about the generation of the code, we are usually thinking about visuals, and that is very normal and very surprising that actually we can do same thing for music as well. And let's dive into 1843. 1843, this is the year that music programming as an idea was already introduced. And as you imagine, we did not have the computers as we understand them today. But despite that, Ada Lovelace described in her works that computing engine can be as a perfect tool to create precise and scientific music. That means this idea is nothing new. We had this for some time already, and no surprise that nowadays we have different ways, actually different even programming languages which are capable to create music. And I want to highlight those two different approaches. Live music coding, meaning we can create music and change that on the fly. And the second way, music in the apps, this is what we're going to focus today. How can we incorporate and integrate the sounds in our applications? And you see, today we're going to show, we're going to look into Tone and Magenta libraries for that. If we briefly look into the history of audio possibility in the web, that is nothing new. We have different ways how we can add the audio in the web. And today I want to focus on the most sophisticated way to do that nowadays, which is by using the Web Audio API. And why it is so great? Web Audio API not only enables us to replay some audio track, Web Audio API enables us to create the sound itself, to analyze it and modify as well. So basically it enables us to use browsers as synthesizers. How does that work? So imagine we have some web application, and for that we would need to create some audio context in order to store the audio state. So you see we have the audio context, everything gonna happen there. We would create the sources that can be your either microphone, your audio track, or some synthesizer, for example, or oscillator, and then we would need to connect that to the destination. And in these few steps, we could create the sound in the web. And usually with the programming, we are starting with some Hello World application. And as you imagine, we will not have Hello World application today, but in music programming, we have the analogy of it, which is called first beep sound. So I want to show you how can we create our first beep sound simple from our browser console. First of all, as I mentioned, we need to have a context here. So I'm here just initializing the context. And then second step, we need to have the source. As I mentioned, we're gonna create the first beep sound. That's why now I want to have the, for example, from the context, I can create the oscillator. Oscillator is periodical waveforms. By default, it's gonna take type of sine, but you can use saw squared and so on. At this moment, what do we have? We have the context, we have the source inside. We need to connect the source with the destination. So what I'm doing here, I'm connecting my source with the destination, which is as well taken from the context. Yep. And we still do not hear anything because of that moment is just everything created and connected. And now it's the time to play it, to say that I want actually to play this first beep sound. By the way, you can create the same thing on your dev tools. I will adjust a bit sound, and now prepare yourself. You're gonna hear first beep sound. Okay, and that is it. So we are hearing the first beep sound from our browser consoles in these few steps. And Talking next, no surprises that we developers we love libraries, and there are libraries for web audio API as well. One of them is ToneJS. It's even recommended when you're reading about web audio API because it's just simple, enables us to do the same thing what I just did in a bit simpler and easier and more comfortable way. And today I'm going to show you a short demo how we can do that, how can we incorporate Tone library in our Vue application. Okay, so here, what do I have so far? A simple Vue application. I installed the Tone library with the npm install or yarn add. And here in my template, I have bunch of buttons. I am iterating through my bunch of buttons, and on each, I'm calling play note method. By the way, for those who are not familiar, we can express notes by letters. You see it here, C, E, A, and so on. And then we can say what kind of octave it is. So here we have 2, 3, and 4. Coming back to my component, during initialization of this component, I am using the Tone library in order to get the synth element. So I'm using Tone library here. I'm taking the synthesizer. You see that it's a very simple way to connect that to the destination as well. And I'm having the already prepared synthesizer to play it. And during the method, when we are clicking the button, we are calling that synthesizer, giving that note on which it is called and the length of 1/8. Okay, let's look at how does that sound like. Okay, so in these few steps, we created instrument which is capable to play any sound. So this is full range of sounds instrument. Just at this moment, we are using only the default sounds. So we didn't add anything like from ourselves. We did analyze or modify them. So pretty use the default ones. And I thought we can do better than this. We can add our own sounds and as well maybe modify. So I added a few modifications to have a bit more unique instrument. Okay, so this is Katyana instrument. You heard that we have a cat sample playing, but still according the right pitch. Honestly, before I created this instrument, I thought that I would need to change every sample by myself to change the pitch and maybe just to map it with the help of Tone library. But that was way easier than this. Looking into the code, nothing changed for the template side and for the synthesizer as well. But I have here the new element, which is called sampler. So you see, I'm taking from the Tone library sampler, and during initialization of this instrument, I had to provide the original cat sample. You see it here, and then I'm connecting that with the node G2. So this G2 node, I kind of guessed, and after a few checking, I realized it was G2 node for the original sample, and that's it. You see, no more mapping was needed to provide. All other nodes was adjusted by the Tone library. So in these few steps, we can have our own sounds in the web. And okay, some of you may think, cat sample instrument, how useful it is. But don't judge me too soon, because for those few of you, I went an extra mile and I created something else, something different. Dogiana instrument still plays the dog samples according to the right pitch, but not only this. Okay, I do not want to overwhelm with many different details what we can do with Tone library, but just very briefly, I want to show that there are different elements and you can use for very different reasons, either for some game or very artistic web, some sort of a specific instrument. Okay, let's start from the beginning. Dogiano instrument, it was done in the similar way we already saw. I'm using the sampler, just providing different sample and connecting that with a different note. And going further, previously I was using synth and just the default one, but this is a way how we can use polysynth. It has more sound ranges here. And then I can provide the, you see, oscillator square this time. So this is different elements for the Dogiano instrument. And going further, how did I toggle that melody? One important element from the tone library, it is part, and part may look a bit difficult at first, but basically what it does is just connect different elements, different synthesizers together with the chords. And then I have like one unit, and I can manipulate with that one unit. Either have some loop, then I can change volume, I can mute it, and so on that specific part. So this part contains sampler and polysynth. You see polysynth I'm having here. And then I am providing the melody chords. To be honest, this was the most painful part, to write those chords itself. I'm having here in my constant file. You see how it is written, that I need to provide time, note, and duration. I was using the tick measurement for the time. And if I'm playing two notes at the same time, this is how I'm getting chord. And you see that there is a bunch of notes for the melody, same for the bass chords. And to write them, usually taking the most of the time. But then I can use the same notes for different melodies, for different instruments, and so on. Similar way was done with the bass melody. You see it, I'm using as well part, and reusing this play part that I want to have the loop, and so on. One more and very interesting instrument, kind of the instrument, it is noise element you can use. You see it here, I'm taking the pink noise, not so strong one, and adding the auto filter, which is making that kind of a waving effect on the sound. And then I can start that, toggle that noise as an instrument. And the last, one of the last thing is just playing this samples. You see it here, the Mario samples playing randomly. And here I'm just increasing the beats per minute, so it's just increasing the tempo itself. So all in all, there are different elements from the tone library which you can use, and that is very according to what do you want to reach. Usually maybe it's related with some games, so you want to add some either filters or just interesting sounds for using the click buttons, or just tracking the mouse itself. And according to some very artistic page, you want to navigate user not only with the visual part, but as well with the audio. Okay, that's all with the tone library. I mentioned that I want to talk about another thing, about Magenta. Magenta is an open source research project, as you see, exploring the role of machine learning as a tool in some creative process. And that is not only music, that is art in general. And MagentaGS is a subset of the Magenta, which is providing JavaScript API to use those pre-trained Magenta models. And you see that we have for music, for sketch, for images. Today, I'm going to show you how we can use Magenta Music in our Vue application. So I'm going to different branch, and let's start by looking into the result. What do we have here? We have here AI instruments now, and I have three options. To play of the original song is the first option. Okay, so to be honest, no machine learning is included here. I'm just predefining some notes and using Magenta and playing it, as you probably heard similar notes before. But then going further, I'm having AI continuation, what it does, I'm using some models for which I need to provide some melody. So this original song I provided. And then on top of that, having that in mind based on this original song, I'm getting some results. So for example, and on each click, I'm calling again and again. So I'm requesting, and then that means I'm getting always the new result, and never, I do not know what. Okay, so that surprises me as well. And the last thing here is AI new song. What it does not take any original song as a base song on which it should provide some results. So it's using different models, and it's just giving you a totally unique result on its own. Okay, and another time. Okay, so you hear how different each click makes as a result. Let's look into the code now, how that should be done. Starting probably from the original melody, I want to show you that now I'm using only Magenta, but it has very similarities with the tone library, because Magenta is using tone library under the hood. But you see, it is even less writing, that I'm just having Magenta, creating player, and then providing the notes to play. And for the original melody, that is it. But there are two important things in Magenta. It's called music RNN, music recurrent neural network, and another music variational autoencoder. There are two different models. The first one is for creating that continuation. So I need to provide on what kind of sample do you want to continue melody. And then another one is just to create the totally new result. And for both, I need to provide the checkpoints. Checkpoints I'm taking from my constant file. You see that I'm taking from the, according what model it is, I'm taking different checkpoints, and the different checkpoints, there are a bunch of them you can use, you can get different results, and you can describe what kind of pre-trained checkpoints you want actually to use. So here I'm having, as you see, basic RNN and different one. How do I need to use it after I'm initializing it? You see it here that I'm using music RNN. I'm just requesting to get some sort of the sequence, then providing that base note. A small note that here I'm giving jump notes, it's just like a bunch of notes, and then a bit changing the format, because for music RNN I need to have quantized notes in a different format. And then there are three important options which lets you to manipulate with the result. What do I mean? There is a steps per quarter I'm providing here, steps and temperature. The values itself is here. Steps say how long do I want to have a result, so the duration of that. Temperature, how randomized I want to have, so randomization weight. It is from the original, and the note with each other that wouldn't be very close. And then the last thing, the tempo. Do I want to have it faster or slower? So you can still slightly modify the result, but you never know what you're gonna get. And so this is how I'm getting continuation. For the totally new result, I'm using music variational autoencoder. I can say how many samples do I want to get, as well the temperature. And lastly, I'm just playing with my created player. So in these few steps, you can have as an example or basics just to get some result from those models. And at this moment, I want to show you a very interesting game, which is using MagentaGS. So you can later on or now as well check it. It's called Piano Genie. And what it is here, as you see it down below, it has only 8 keys I can click. For example, I can click one, but even I'm clicking only one key, I'm gonna get different pitches because it's deciding for me what kind of pitch now it should be played. And the story behind this, that it is using the pre-trained models by taking the data from piano virtuosos. So you can feel sometimes as a piano virtuoso even playing this game. So for example, so I'm also do not know what kind of note it will play because I have only 8 notes here, and you see how many different pitches it is here. But it's choosing for me. On the other side, I can still change the length of each note. I can change how many notes do I want to play at the same time, and so on. So it's pretty cool game to play. Okay, and going to my summary, which is very short, that we can create music with code. And the thing why I'm saying, because many even developers do not know that or do not notice that, and it can be done into web application. On the other side, that can be done as a live performance, and people do that. So that is also a cool thing to do, but for specific project as very artistic ones, and this creates a very great user experience in the web. And few things, my gifts for you if you want to recreate what I just showed. I'm gonna maybe later on I just copy it to you in the chat a few articles for the machine learning and in general to create the sounds in the web. Then to show as well some example how live coding may look and sound like, since I didn't touch today. And the last part, some tasks and examples from my workshops, which you can just copy paste and to check what sounds you are getting from there. And that is it from my side. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for inviting. It was my pleasure to be here. And if you have any question, you can just ping me later on as well.
Thank you, Laura. That was amazing. It was really interesting and fun. And yeah, feel free to send me those links. I'll make sure to include them in the presentation email so that everyone can.
Yeah, I will.
So thank you so much. I don't see any questions, but again, you will receive Laura's contact details in the email, so feel free to get in touch with her privately if you want. Okay, so thanks so much for that, Laura. It was very interesting. Okay, so the next speaker is Sarah. She's a senior cloud advocate at Microsoft. Sarah, can you hear me?
Yes, hello. Thank you.
Hello, Sarah.
Cool. Let me just
Stage is yours.
Share my screen. So thank you